Hello and welcome to Ed Hartman's Wild World of Music and Film, episode two. Anyway, I am joined by the esteemed director, composer, producer, con man. No, I'm sorry. Tilman Borck, something like that. Anyway, thank you for coming onto this program, Tilman.
Thanks for having me, Ed. Great to be here.
Yeah. So, as a few of you know that have listened to the first program, that this is a new program, a new podcast, a new video thing. I don't know what it's going to be. Who knows? My goal is Steven Spielberg. Just so you know.
Okay.
Yes.
You should do this by podcast number 3, I think.
Yes. Anyway, I'll be dead, but he'll be listening. So anyway, the idea is to kind of talk about music and film, and just films and whatever. But my bent on it is music and film, and then my ulterior motive is to meet filmmakers so that they'll hire me to score films. But I'm not going to tell anybody that because that would be giving away the secret. But
Sure.
I'm also developing into some kind of a filmmaker thing too, as producer of this, as the Earth Turns thing. Take a look at that if you want. But so I'm really interested in learning as much as I can about filmmaking and all the rest of it. And I got to say, man, Tilman, I'm looking you up. You've done a lot of stuff, and I am in awe of how you've put together this film, because I know how hard this stuff is. I mean, I don't know how you put it together. I just, I'm trying to write a biopic about somebody, and I can't even imagine going to that point after the screenplay of, I mean, I've worked on a lot of films, but as a composer, but man, I mean, that's a lot of work. And I think you were a producer on this too, right?
Yeah, I was a producer on this. It was my project. I thought it up at the idea, and then I started off from scratch. Just thinking about it makes me kind of go tired again.
Yeah.
But well, if I compare it to this space now where I'm trying to distribute it, I can tell you there's nothing as uncomfortable about making or even pre-production, making a movie as it is to distribute this, because this is not much fun trying to get it out there. But making it, I don't know, it was my project. I had a lot of energy, but thanks for appreciating that. It was, a lot of work.
Yeah. No, I there's just so much process to it. In the film I produced, was made in 1938, so I had nothing to do with the actual making of the film, but I revived it, and it was never released.
Yeah, you were too young in 1938.
Yeah, just a little. So the hard part for me was going from scratch with a film that's already kind of existed and trying to learn all of this stuff, film festivals and distribution. I've learned a ton about it, so which is good. So at least I'll feel like, the more stuff I create myself, I'll be in better shape. But so no, again, it's something else to do that. I did watch it last night. It was a funny movie. So again, it's
Thank you so much.
And I'll give you credit for trying comedy, because that's got to be the hardest thing there is in my mind as a film to make.
Tell you one thing, it's not what many people choose way into independent movies. It's more kind of like a conventional studio kind of approach. Usually people who do make independent movies are into dramas, or, well, there are budget restrictions, so you cannot do much. You cannot do science fiction or action, but dramas, I think it is. And if you go to film festivals, or if you want to have support by governments, finance of any sort, they're much more open arms with you if you have a drama than if you have a comedy. Yeah. So to get that through the process is a little bit more difficult. Yeah, that's true.
Right. Well, it's, what is it? Tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yeah.
Which will be the story of this broadcast.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Anyway. Okay. And the movie is The Midas Touch.
That's it.
So anyway, and it's a raunchy.
Everybody says that. Yeah, I guess it's raunchy.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it is, man.
It's okay. I embrace that term. I
Yeah,
made a
right.
raunchy movie. It's okay.
That's the idea. No, it's very open, and I'll give you credit for going full frontal.
Yeah, I did. You know what the funny thing is about that? I thought it would be weird, to direct kind of, because I'm naked in the scene. I have to direct that, but that's okay because you're focused on what you need to do. But what really is weird is to edit and to sit with the people in the sound, and you're moving around the screen naked. You say, "Yeah, let's have the music come in on that cue," and then when that's a bit difficult.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, I have questions about that scene myself, but I'm not going
Okay.
to. And it relates to the final scene, which is quite intriguing.
Oh yeah, it kind of connects, right?
Yeah.
To that the boat scenes,
I was
right?
wondering what that thing was anyway. Um,
So people who know the movie will just know what you're referring to, but that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah, other people, we
Yeah.
can
What
keep
is?
them wondering.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I have kind of my initial format for this podcast is kind of 10 questions from hell.
Oh,
And I don't know, I may stick to them, I may not. But it kind of begins on where you're from and where you're living now. So we can find you and kill you if necessary.
yeah. And, trying to get a VPN here connection so you don't know where I'm sending this broadcasting this from. I'm from Hamburg, north of Germany. I was born and raised here, and I've come back. But I've been on the road in between. I went to the United States a couple of years ago. That's maybe that decades ago. Went to acting school in Los Angeles at the Lee Strasberg Theater School,
Wow.
and then I finished my education in Zurich in Switzerland, and actors and directors school. And then I came back to Germany, to Hamburg, which
Mhm.
is where I'm based now. And I'm kind of like based in sometimes here and also in Spain, south of Spain. When the weather just gets too terrible to put up with, here I go there. But for now,
Oh, you
I'm in Hamburg.
Europeans.
Yeah, everything's so close, right? So we might as well
Well,
go there.
hopefully you can actually go from country to country right now, right? Is it easier?
Right, you mean with the pandemic? It's a
Yeah.
bit difficult. It was crazy. Last year I came back with after first lockdown because we didn't have a lockdown all year through in Europe,
Yeah.
and it's fine. You go to the airport, and then they have those signs on the ground, and then they ask you, and then they didn't even test you then, but they just ask you,
Yeah.
and you have a couple of meters where people hold social distance, and then after 3 4 meters, everybody's the nose up in their head, and nobody else social distance. I think the spots where they test people for corona is also where most people pick it up because it just gets too close together. Anyway, that's just a side note. So I
Right.
was in Spain last year, but now I'm back in Hamburg in Germany.
Right. Right. Well, good to know. Yeah, I was wondering about that, and I thought did you live in England at some point?
Yeah. How do you know that? I
I
did
thought there
actually.
was something in. Was it that first movie you made that you talked about growing up in England, in London, right? Or
I don't
something?
know that. I
Or
don't know
no?
what you mistaken
Or there
this
was.
with, but I did spend some time in England, in London. Yeah, but I'm not
Well, there's
sure.
something I heard somewhere about. Maybe it was a line in something.
Could be.
Yeah, a line in one of the movies. I don't know. So I kind of put that together because you speak wonderful English, and
Thank you so much. It's kind of weird. Whenever I go to the States, they think I sound like I come from England, and in England, they think I sound kind of American. So I don't know. Probably lost
well,
in the Atlantic somewhere.
yeah, and in the Midas Touch, that was made in Europe, I assume, right?
Yeah, it was made right here in Hamburg.
Right, because everybody has kind of an English accent, but or they speak wonderful English in it, but everybody they're the D's or whatever it's a little
Yeah,
bit, yeah, and I assume that it takes place kind of in a generic cityscape was the idea.
that's what we were trying to aim for.
Yeah,
We didn't want people to be able to place it. So we didn't show cars. There's a busing, but that's about as far as it goes. We don't, when people want to know the way on the street, they don't, show up a cell phone, but an old fashioned map. and there's no computers, no cell phones most of the time.
Right,
So we
right,
just wanted it to be a magical place that you can place.
right, right.
And but we do have an American actor. Can you tell one of our main cast is it's called Clayton Nemro. He plays the boss, Ron, the
Yes,
boss,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he does play with a speak with an American accent
yeah,
most of the time.
yeah, yeah,
But our main, other than that, we got the protagonist, Felix. He's from England,
yeah.
and the secretary is from England, and the rest of the cast is from all over the place.
Right,
We got people
right.
from Italian background, a lot of German people. We got people from Colombia. So yeah, that's just all sorts of accents, which I think works fine since it's not a particular place.
I
I
love
hope.
I love the eclectic nature of the cast. I mean, because everything in
Mhm.
the United States is just
Yeah.
same old, man. This makes me want to go back to the old country.
Right.
Anyway, well, let before we get into the film a little bit more, let's go through a few more of these. So, and I did watch. Oh, what's the early film from '98? The short of finding the treasure.
The Treasure of the Tsar.
That was great. I want to see more of that. I really do. That was
You like that?
incredible. I love that. It was so cute. I don't know what it was. You have I mean, obviously you do a lot of voice over,
Yeah.
and you do a great job of narrating that thing. I don't know what it is about that. It's delightful. It's just a little slice of life. It's like a New Yorker cartoon or something, and it yeah okay a
Thank you
little
so
bit
much.
man
So
a little bit of Monty Python or whatever.
you really dug in deep with the research there because it's not that easy to find. So you went to Vimeo and the page and you
Yeah,
looked it up
yeah.
in the resume.
No,
How
I
did you
did
come
find
about
it.
that?
Yeah, yeah.
Great,
No,
great.
I thought that was great. And
Thank you
so,
so much.
that sounds like was that your first produced piece of yourself for yourself?
Yeah, it was. That was also an independent a movie that we showcased. And it was actually 23 years ago. It was 1997. You could
Yeah.
tell how gorgeously young I was then. And so we did that. I did that then, and it was something I came up with while I was still at acting school because I was thinking of just silly things. I had the idea of a traveler who's kind of in a different world, and also a bit, if you compare it to the Midas Touch, somebody who's just on a different wavelength, something
Yeah.
that's a bit surreal, I suppose. And then I had the main idea. The construction was around this diary. Yeah, so he's sitting in the train. Then obviously it's shot in modern Hamburg, but he thinks he's on a with German signs all visible.
Right.
But he thinks he's on a train ride on Trans-Siberian train to the Tsar, and he says, water's running out. Unfortunately, I still have lots of lemonade. And it's kind of silly things like that.
No, it's classic. It's just it's a funny little trip. I don't know. I just love that. So it was
Great.
really cool. So what go back as far as you can on this. What kind of was the impetus to be getting to filmmaking at all, or was it acting first, or
It was acting first. Actually, after having finished high school, I kind of wondered because even then I wanted to be a director and um, and an actor, producer probably not so much. Nobody dreams of being a producer, right? And but I thought, how can I place myself? What would I see myself ideally doing? And I could not see myself so much as directing other people's projects, just being a hired hand as a director and working for a company. But I could see myself acting for other people's projects because I just like broad kind of act, all sorts of acting. So I thought, okay, then let's focus on the acting and then jump on the directing train if it should get along along the way, right? So I started with acting, and we did have a bit of directing also at our school in Zurich. There were a couple of directors. We did our own videos and stuff, but I wanted to start with acting, and then I just kind of took the chance when I came along to direct the first movie, which is that one that you like, The Treasure of the Tsar, and we just rented a camera of a film university here, and it was kind of done really in a fast way. And then actually the woman who's a camera woman couldn't be there, and we had to for the last day of shooting, I think it was, and we had to do a scene without her. And I remember looking at the camera, and then there was numbers, and I thought, okay, is this the minutes that we already shot, or is this the minutes of reel that we still have? And so we just so some of these scenes we just switched on, and it was lucky that we got something out of that. And but it was it was a bit unprofessional. Also, the camera woman. I remember being in the editing booth. Do you remember those old editing rooms? You know, not digitally editing, but with the
So,
big reels, and they grab the
well, yeah.
sound and they move that so fast. And that was something. That was a blurry picture. And I asked, which there was also a woman who's editing, and I asked her, "What is that on the screen? It looks a bit weird and it's flirty." And she looked at me and said, "Does your camera woman have long blonde hair?" I said, "Yeah." And it was like fell out of her bun and was floating in front of the lens. I thought, okay, I got to up my game here, you know, being more professional. But it was
Like
fine in the end.
finger on the lens.
Yeah, something close to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a common thing with phones. You know, you hold up your hands. Well, as a kid, I was into Super 8, and so I was editing
Oh,
Super 8 movies. Yeah, and that's one reason I kind of came back into film now. Anyway, but no, I get you about all that. In fact, what's funny about all that is the guy I'm working on who made this As the Earth Turned film, Richard Lyford. He passed away in '85. I have his film estate. And so, really, about 20 feet from me are his 16 and 35 films. And I actually purchased a 16 millimeter editing bay, or not editing bay, but just an editor, a crank editor, just so I can view these things necessary. Most of everything's been digitized, but I needed to check things and make sure we had done everything.
right.
So, I get that, man. And I remember hand editing, with Super 8 and trying to use that tape and all that. It was terrible.
It
And
was so,
and
and Super 8 is so tiny, you know, to get
yeah,
that and not to make many mistakes. So that
yeah.
really difficult.
And I was doing editing with audio tape, growing up, using splicers and stuff like that. So that was a
So
whole thing.
you're a technical guy, and I'm not
No,
so much. I'm
no,
not. No.
no.
Okay.
I
I
hate
thought
it.
you
No,
would.
I live with it. I deal with it, and I've learned enough about it, but I was never good at it. The
Oh,
best
I
the
see.
best audio editing I ever saw was I made an album in '86 LP, and we did a Bach piece on marimba, and anyway, and my editor or my producer Dave Huber, who wrote the book on audio engineering,
Mm.
he got out his his block, and we had a couple of versions of an A and a B section, and took the master and perfectly split. And I was like, "Are you kidding? Oh my god!" But he just did an expert job. Nobody's ever noticed to this
Oh,
day
great.
that edit.
How did you end up being involved with the estate of that filmmaker you were referencing
Long
before?
story. I'd spent an hour talking about, but basically, the great niece of the filmmaker hired me to score the film, and then we got involved in producing and all of that. There's a backstory on Stage 32 on if you go to asthereturns.com, go to that backstory. The entire mess is on there, and then a lot of the
Oh,
interviews I've done, I've talked about it. So, but I don't want to talk about myself, so I appreciate your interest, though. But
sure.
and it's inspirational as hell. I mean, it really is. The serendipity involved was over the top on this whole thing. So,
Wonderful.
but anyway, so you were first an actor, and then you kind of got into the directing secondarily, and
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it.
and then you've been doing again. It seems like I noticed a lot of voiceover work
Yeah,
in general.
I've been doing this for since I've come back after acting and film school to Hamburg. I've just started doing that because what they do here is, first of all, there's a lot of dubbing here. They have a lot
Yeah,
of dubbed versions. In other countries, not so much. There are different countries in Europe where they have a real tradition of dubbing movies, which is Germany, and then France, and Italy, and Spain. But all the other um countries don't do that, or they just have the the original version, the sound running in the back, and then there is one person speaking all the lines of all the characters,
yeah.
which is really no fun to do that. So I did a bit of that, and then I found out that there's it's more interesting actually. More money to be had also in commercials. So I do a lot of commercials right now. I'm on the off voice for General Lottery in Germany, and I do that, and that kind of pays the bills and gives me the opportunity to concentrate on my projects.
Right. And are you doing acting in commercials too these days, or?
Not so much. I think I've done about one, but no, it hasn't come my way. It was always the voice, and one thing leads to another. Sometimes, careers as they happen, it's an element of chance. It's not like I
Yeah.
I really wanted to do this off voice thing, but it came my way, and I thought, why not do that? Jump on a
Well, that's
bandwagon, and it's fine.
excellent pandemic work.
It is. You know
Yeah.
what? It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people go to the studio, and before, what they did was they had a lot of customers. If you do a commercial for, like, let's say, Coca-Cola, then they would have people in this, just the people from the studio, and they would have Coca-Cola people and people from the agency. But now what they do is they just stay home and do it all via Zoom,
Yeah.
and so there's no risk involved. I'm moving to the studio with my mask on, and then when I'm on the microphone, which they heavily, you know, clean and wipe off all the time, they take off the mask. You're right. It's absolutely spot on and perfect for the
Yeah.
pandemic, right?
Yeah. Well, and from in my world in composing, and especially I do a lot of music for music libraries and things like that. Briefs. I'm in the studio, in my own studio, and
Yeah.
I can work. Nothing's changed. So,
Yeah. Why do people bother about this pandemic? Nothing's changed. I went to your homepage, and man, you've done quite a bit of work. You got so much there. It's great. I was
thank you.
really impressed with that.
Well, I do a lot. I mean, I've never been stuck at doing any one thing. So,
Yeah, it's
anyway,
great to be versatile, right?
yeah, yeah. So, what was why do you think you got started in film and acting and all the rest of it? And what was the inspiration?
I always wanted to do that. I've been wanting to do that since I was 6 or 7, I think, the acting. And then the music came to when I got into pop music and that kind of thing. I was around 12. But there's, sometimes you connect it to a scene. And the one scene that I remember was my uncle visiting us with a couple of business people, I think, from his work. And I was must have been 8 or 9. I put on a clown's mask and do my little routine, and they all laughed. And I remember when he introduced me, he said, "Oh, this is Tilman. He's the actor in the family." And I said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I like that. I'm the actor." And so that was kind of the first time that somebody put it in words for me as a child. And then obviously I was always on school productions, and so it was just it was not like that moment you've been out of school. You think, okay, let's take a look at the book of opportunities. What do I want to do? It was always clear. I never spent a minute pondering it. It is what I always wanted to do, and there was
Uh-huh.
never a question if I would follow that path or not. It's
Yeah,
weird. For some people, it is like that.
yeah. Well, I found I really wasn't good at a whole lot of other things.
Oh, that's a way to just cross out everything that doesn't work. Oh, that's the last
Well,
thing I can
I
do.
mean, for me in school, like if I was in an English class and they would ask, to write a paper, I would come up with like a. It's funny. I've always loved radio, and I would do like an interview, a fake interview with Shakespeare about, like, hey, Bill, what do you think? Whoa,
But that's
I'm doing the same thing
original.
now. Oh my God.
But did you have teachers that weren't open
Yeah, I
enough for
did
that
have
kind of thing?
teachers that were okay with that, and I wouldn't get an A, but I'd get a B, and they would say, "Very creative."
But that's good because a lot of
It
people go to
was
schools where they just say, "Oh no, this is not what we want. Go home. This is
right. I'm
you
just
know."
saying there wasn't necessarily a lot of content.
No, okay, but it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Just have Shakespeare come up and talk to him.
Right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. And then the music side, again, that's what surprised me is that I was thinking about this. I wanted to mention this, that first of all, as an actor, you remind me of Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, funny.
Has anybody ever said that?
I don't think so. The looks or the style or the,
A little
I
bit of
don't know what it is.
both. No, I mean, he's got kind of a European thing going anyway.
Yeah,
But
kind of
there's,
your.
I don't know, when I first saw you, especially doing the cult leader, vampire thing. Whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Well, part of it is his accents. He has,
Yeah,
whenever you go to the default thing for American movies, if you have a villain, there's always a British accent.
right,
Even, German Nazi guys usually have a
right.
British accent because it sounds, I think it has to do with the US kind of, they do feel it's an inferiority complex, I think, because they think, oh, this is the right English, this is what we're supposed to sound like, and so that's kind of, it's distant. And so in this movie, we make part of kind of fun of it. I speak partly with an English accent, and then I kind of lose it in the way, and then my sidekick reminds me, hey, you gotta remember, you gotta have this villainous accent, and so maybe that's plays into that Gary Oldman kind of thing. Could be.
Yeah, and
I
you
don't
do
know.
you do challenge the fourth wall a few times in this film,
Yeah.
so kind of clever. All right, so
Thanks.
yeah, and then so music wise, where did that? How did that get going? You said you were involved in pop music. Were you playing as a musician, or was it just composing, or what?
um, yeah, not so much. I got together with people sometimes. So my background in music is I started when I was a kid. I must have been 4 or 5 when they sent me to a Yamaha school where we had those little pianos, or actually kind of keyboards, and we did that. And after that, after I finished that, from 6 years on until I was 21, I had classical piano training.
Really?
And so we would always play, I don't know, once later on when I was 15, 16, we had a concert. So I wouldn't bother to rehearse a lot all through the year, but there was this one concert in summer, then I would really get my act together. I played Chopin, I played some, I like 19th century romantic music, like a Rachmaninoff, Chopin, that kind of thing. I think that influenced me. You can tell that a little bit from the score I wrote for The Treasure of the Tsar, which is
Yeah.
a piano
Right.
bit. And so there was something that I was thinking about. Later on, I picked up the guitar, but I'm a lousy guitarist. It's so weird. When I play something on the piano, then it's just in my hands, and it's kind of nice. But on the guitar, I can practice a piece, and then that's okay, but it doesn't translate to other pieces. I'm just as clumsy with my hands and other pieces. And so, piano I like, and guitar I kind of sometimes play. And so with this music, with the music for this movie, for the Midas Touch, I wanted to have a sweeping, uh, grand, old-fashioned score, and I was thinking of having this idea like a little opera. So whenever
Mm,
every main character would have to have the theme, that whenever they
right.
show up, we'd play that theme, and we'd even introduce them
It's
in the
been
movie.
going through
You
my
you
head all night. Right.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, I have to, make that a little bit more complicated. Let's do this in A flat major, not minor, not A major, minor. And I was just sitting on the piano. It was so if you play something weird like A flat minor, then you have those
Yeah.
the E and the E flat, and you play with that, and then it just comes
Right.
about.
True.
And I wanted, yeah, say, what do
No,
you
no,
think?
I agree. Yeah, different keys would say completely change your thing. I'm not a great piano player, but I use it for composing, and
Mm-hmm.
I tend to get stuck in certain keys all the time, and break away from it all of a sudden. Like, oh yeah, I didn't would have thought of that way. I agree. It's there's something about the physical, and you're used to certain things in certain ways on a keyboard for sure.
Yeah, and it's a challenge not to get stuck with that because some easy things work so well, and I'm sometimes, there are a lot of tutorials on piano and on composing and on YouTube, and they're kind of systematic, and they tell people, you got this scale and you got this, and then why don't you think of using that scale? And I think it's just too theoretical. It's nice to know all of these things, but first of all, you don't have to know it. A lot of people who are great in pop and rock music don't know anything about that. But you have to play that kind of from the heart. And that was the great thing, I think, with me, because I have a natural approach. I didn't start learning music theory, but I learned that later on when I was in high school. But that was when I'd already been playing the piano for 10
Yeah.
years. So I was sitting at the piano, and I was thinking, oh, let's see what I can do, because I never wanted to rehearse. And the first piano teacher, he was always so upset because I would not listen to the beat, not count the beat, and I would not play the notes. I just would play by ear all the time and just play what he played for me. And they said, no, you got to look at the sheet and play the exact note. I never wanted to do that. And so I would just look at the piano and say, okay, there's an E. Which chord can I play with? Oh, you can play a C major chord, but you can also play E major. And then that leads to A minor. So it was a world that I kind of conquered on my own. And so it's naturally. And then later on, I learned about theory. And I think that's a problem with people who start learning theory. They never step out of it. They never have a natural approach to it. That's my theory. I don't
No,
know
I
what you think.
agree. I've always taught. I teach music. I've been teaching for 40 years actually, and my approach is that it's a language that you learn in, like any language. There's four ways you experience it. You can read it, write it, listen, or speak. And the first way
Yeah.
you inevitably go is for listening, and then you mimic to speak, and then you read, and then you write in that order. And I don't think any language is taught very well in any other order. I tried to learn. I took Hebrew, Spanish, and Russian, and I can't
Oh,
speak any
wow.
of those because I was taught completely reverse. Give you a book and all the rest of it. Same thing with music. A lot of people start playing music by reading, but they don't. They become functionally illiterate with it, where they can read it. They're a robot. They can play but they don't know what anything is. And so
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I
all of
completely agree.
theory, yeah, theory to me is just explanation of what's already there. That's it. It's just, it's like grammar. You don't want to be thinking about grammar when you're writing,
Of
but it's
course,
going
yeah.
on. It's going on,
Uh-huh.
and the clearer it is, then you can more, mess around with it. So it's for me, it's always been an improvisational game, and I spent a lot of
Hmm.
time improvising as a kid, and on instruments. I came from percussion too, which is rhythm first, and
Hmm.
so that gets you into, if you can groove on something, it doesn't matter what you play as long as you play something. Anyway, so I
Yeah,
agree with you, but to me, it's just discovery of stuff, and and
it
and
is. It can
yeah.
be so
And
exciting.
and what I noticed about your tracks is they do definitely have kind of a 19th century, early 20th century, kind of European groove to them that I love, and I do stuff like that
Yeah,
all the
thank you.
time. I love, I'm a heavy into odd genres and vintage stuff. So to me, that's right up my alley.
Great.
I dig that stuff. And then you had, so your process in scoring, say, Midas Touch, did you had real musicians on at least part of the score. I
Yeah.
imagine the orchestral stuff was more virtual. I hate to say that about anything.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
but yeah, I
a
didn't see
question
the
of money, right?
I
Budget.
didn't see the London Symphony listed. I hired the East West Symphony myself. So
Okay.
that's what I always say.
Yeah. Funny. What we did is we had a rough cut of the movie because we wanted to send it in. They had some dates that were coming up, and we just had the basic music. And then what we did, I edited the movie. That was the way it was supposed to be anyway. And we cut out some 2 minutes more to make it snappy. And then we went to the studio again and hired a bunch of people. They were actually Roma musicians, from the street. There's a guy who's playing the dulcimer, it's called. Says little thing. You should know it's a percussion instrument. And it's like it's also called cimbalom. You have the
Right?
strings,
Yeah.
and you have
So there's a real
that.
cymbalum on there.
Yeah, we have that. We wanted to use it more, but then he was Christian. He was past 80, I think, and we recorded something in his home, and we couldn't. We ended up not using it because it was not good enough. But I wanted to have this on the main theme that you just played.
Yeah. Right.
But we ended up just having it in some parts of the melody for my character, Rao, because I was thinking of him, of my character, which is basically the main villain of the movie. He's called Rao because I looked it up. I wanted to have some weird name. And Rao is actually a Romanian for evil. And so that's
Mhm.
what I came up with. And so I kind of thought, okay, what do I want the music to sound like for this guy? And how do I want to have an instrumentation? And I was thinking along the lines of Dracula,
Right.
Eastern Europe,
Yeah.
and that kind of music. But it should have a fun element because they have some slapstick moments, and so that's how I brought that together. Other characters have to be a little bit different. We have the smart but equally evil boss, Felix, the protagonist, and so we have kind of like a cool saxophone theme, and then yeah, then that's that opera idea that they always the
Yeah.
themes show up.
It's Nosferatu meets Benny Hill.
That I should put if I ever have a DVD come out, I'll put that on the
There
cover.
you go. That's my quote.
Nosferatu. Yeah, Betty.
Yeah. No, I love the two beat stuff, you know. No, that's great, man. All right. So
Yeah,
so yeah, as
appreciate it.
far as and we're using a DAW, a digital audio workstation for your orchestral stuff.
What's that? I see that. I'm so bad with that. I don't even know what
Well, I
that is.
assumed you created this orchestral stuff. If you had to do it digitally, how did you do it?
Oh, okay. So the problem is, I'm so bad
You got
with
help.
everything technical. I don't, I don't even have a computer program. So
Okay.
what I would do is I would go home with my movie, look at the movie, and know, okay, I have to come up with 20 minutes of music for the next day. And then I would just, the music that I already written before, I would put that together and learn it by heart. I have those 20 minutes of music in my head and go with that to the studio. And then in the studio, they would put that all to music. I would play most of it. There's some bass I play on a synthesizer, and then I basically all the keyboards, which are usually piano sounds, or sometimes uh, old-fashioned pianos or Bach
Right,
pianos.
right.
And I would always, and they would, yeah, put it they would do the technical stuff at the studio now, which I obviously couldn't afford to build for to rent for that long. And then sometimes we had a little bit of a trick, like speed up the music if it was to fit the scene. We have
Right.
that
Yeah.
in the beginning when Felix goes to his office, we had to speed it up a little bit, which was fine because he was in a hurry to get to the office anyway.
Right,
Yeah. What
right.
was the question? Did I answer the
Oh no, yeah,
question
yeah,
in the
that's
end?
fine. I was just curious your process on that because my process is I use Logic on a Mac, and that's a digital audio workstation, and it has built-in thousands of sounds and instruments, and then you can get plug-in orchestras like East West and L.A. Strings and all. There's a hundreds and
Yeah,
hundreds of those things,
they
and
had
then I
that.
compose to score. So if I was working for you, you would send me the film. I'd put it into my DAW, and then I would actually compose to it. My process is I'm gonna, like for your tune, I was kind of figuring this out ahead about 5 minutes before you came on. You know,
Oh, great.
I know those chords by heart because I that's just those are part of me anyway. And and of course I can jazz them, whatever. So you can
Great.
stylize once you get the chords, you can stylize them. So basically, what I do is I'll lay down a piano, usually a piano track, and then orchestrate from there. And that way I can hit all
Oh,
the hit points and things like that. So I can sync it right up to the footage that way, all myself. And then if
right.
I'm going to hire other musicians, I print out the parts or have somebody do that, and then you would have them recorded in a studio or something like that. Now for me, I was lucky enough on As Your Turns to have a budget to go into a post house and
Hmm.
really mix. It's a silent movie, so it's only music. We didn't have to dodge under dialogue or anything, but really pulled out the quality of even a digital orchestra to a much higher level than I could do. So a lot of
Sure.
that, and you were in a nice studio. Was it just an audio studio? Or was this also your
No,
uh,
no, no. It was just an audio studio.
that did that?
Um, yeah. So we had some great musicians. It was funny. One guy was so old, he's over 18. The other guy was 19.
Wow.
Really great musician. He did the clarinet. You know, we
Yeah,
have the version
great
of that.
clarinet work, man. No,
And he came into the studio, and he's also a street musician. And then the guy in the studio, producer, asked him, "Yeah, did you want anything? You want a piece of paper to write that down?" And he says, "I got my head, I got my ears, so I don't need anything more."
there you go.
So, and it was spot on. He could just, we have
Yeah,
a wonderful version. I like the version we did, the slow version of that main theme, which is just me on the piano and then the guy on the clarinet, which is,
yeah,
I think, the number two on our website. I don't know if
yeah.
you
Touch
listen
a
to that.
clarinet, probably. Yeah.
That's a slow version of that. Otherwise, really upbeat. Dee, 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 dee. All of a sudden, we got
Right.
dee, dee,
No,
dee, dee,
it's
dee.
a great theme because you can play around with it so much,
Yeah,
and that was a smart move on your end because a lot of film composers will say, keep those melodies somewhat short, and then you can manipulate them, move them around, and a lot better. If you have a very long theme going on, you listen, even Star Wars and stuff like that. Even Williams tends to get about as big as they get.
yeah.
He'll take a theme and like Wagner just staple it all the way through the thing. So
Yeah, and in my movie, as it's all character based, I wanted to have, this main funny theme to go with the slapstick, but
right,
then I wanted to have a little bit of this element when they're putting on the show, everything goes wrong, or he's being hit with the handbag by someone. I wanted to have a little bit of element when you say, okay, these people are crazy, and he's a villain, he wants to have the Midas touch, but it's also kind of sad that nothing should
right,
work out for them. And so I had these little moments when there's a, sad kind of Chaplin-esque violin,
right.
and to give it a bit more of a depth and not to be that one-dimensional.
Right. Speaking of filmmakers and Chaplin, people like that, I was thinking about directors that actually compose. There's not a lot that do
No,
that, but David Lynch, he works with one other guy on a lot of that stuff. But a lot of that, he wrote a lot of that stuff himself. Clint
he works
Eastwood,
with Angelo Badalamenti, I
yeah,
think, right?
right,
So,
exactly. Clint Eastwood,
yeah.
and then of course Charlie Chaplin, who was
Hmm.
a really wonderful musician and composer. I mean, that is phenomenal what he was able to create.
Yeah.
I think he probably had a lot of help. Never got the feeling he was technically that much of a composer, but he knew how to get help like what you
Yeah.
were
He
doing.
didn't read music, I think. So
That's
I
what I
always
mean.
wondered
Yeah, but
that would, it must be really complicated for someone to pick it up. If somebody whistled a tune to me, I would always have to have the beginning. You have to figure out, what is this? Is this a major
right.
or minor key? That's not easy for the guy to
No,
to do that
no.
with. This one, what's the guy called? There's a Halloween movie with the. He's a director, and he came up with that
Right.
the great score.
Is that
That was
John
a direct.
Carpenter? John
Yeah,
Carpenter.
John Carpenter.
Yeah, and Carpenter, he writes a lot. I mean, he'll hire people, of course, but he's really very good at scores as well.
Yeah.
And then Robert Rodriguez, great independent director. He's a writer too. So, but
All right,
again,
didn't know that.
you're in rare company. It's just not that done to do that. So, when you think about filmmakers you really like and respect, where do you go? Who do you like?
Are you still talking about in connection with the music or just
Either way,
filmmaking?
doesn't matter.
Okay.
I mean, I
Well,
tend to go to
because
music oriented movies. That's what I tend to respect the most.
all right.
For me, but that's
What
me.
I was what I was thinking of lately when a question came up of composers and working together with directors, what I really like is Martin Scorsese, Taxi Driver, with the score of Bernard Herrmann. Just
Yeah,
that score for New York City, and how that really adds to the quality of the movie. I think if you took away that score from that movie, that would take away so much.
yeah,
If you put another score to that, all that, the when he drives the taxi through the rain, and you have those saxophone melodies. So I like that. When it comes to, I think what you were referring to when we earlier prepared for this was also directors who continuously over a couple movies work together with one composer, and then
Right.
obviously what comes to mind is Sergio Leone,
Yeah.
and what's this guy's name?
Right.
He just passed away. Morricone, Ennio Morricone.
Right.
These Italian names, and and
So I write them
so
down ahead of time.
what fascinated me with that was when they did these great also operatic scenes in Once Upon a Time in the West, for example. He actually had the guy write the music before. He described the scene to him. He said, "Write the music," and then he filmed
Yeah.
the scene according to the music. And that's great if you have a director who's got that kind of respect for the music.
Yeah. I'd love
Then
to do
I
that.
think you can come up with yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to collaborate on somebody at the same level. The only time I've really seen that done at an absolutely equal level was Koyana Squatsi. There's a series of movies that were made by this director, and he used Philip Glass, a minimalist composer, kind of does stuff,
Oh,
this sort of thing.
oh, mm-hmm.
Kind of evolutionary. Really trippy movie. I mean, it's hallucinogenic movie,
Right,
but that they did the music and the film at the same time. It was done like that.
great.
But no,
That's
I
it.
understand. Probably the most interesting uh, example of that is the last 10 minutes of Close Encounters by
Mm-hmm.
John Williams. He wrote that before the film was done because it
Oh,
hadn't been done. The effects hadn't been done. So he had to figure that out. And he's a pen and paper person. Think about
yeah,
that. And that's why it's a remarkably musical sequence. It doesn't feel like a sci-fi film. It's all this. The music is priority in the film. You
mm-hmm.
know, that thing that just gets explosive in there. And there's more
Yeah,
development in that scene than usual. The classic quote about film music is it doesn't get developed that much. You have themes and they come back, but like a symphony has 20 minutes of development of something like that. That scene
yeah,
in Close Encounters is an orchestral masterpiece in my mind, and it does have tremendous development. You have some
right.
pretty interesting theme and variations going in your film, which is, again, more rare.
Thank
That's
you.
one thing that made me kind of interested in it. So, as far as filmmakers in general, who's your top three?
Um, Actually,
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood's kind of up there. What I was just thinking of before when we're talking about his ability to write music, I think he's a bit modest because he doesn't really push it. He doesn't really write the scores and all the main themes for all his movies. So I think Clint Eastwood might just be a bit, I don't know, might not be too convinced about what he writes because with all of the scores, he just occasionally writes a score, right? Or just sometimes.
Yeah, he does a little bit. He'll hire people to flush him out, but I know he's a kind of a jazz piano player, and he'll and more he'll come up with these very lyrical, kind of that's that
Oh,
kind of
jazzy stuff.
jazzy and romantic, that kind of stuff that they'll pop in. I think that's what he's interested in.
So, other than the directors we already mentioned, like Martin Scorsese, Clint Eastwood, Charlie Chaplin, of course, who I relate to because he does all the writing of the music and
Uh-huh.
producing and writing together. I also like Bernardo Bertolucci.
Yeah.
He's a great Italian director who did those great epic movies. So, in epic movies like The Last Emperor, and but he also did some crazy offbeat European movies. And I don't know if you've seen 1900. It's a
I
big
haven't.
epic
I
movie. You should see that. They got some wild scenes in there, and it's with Gerard Depardieu and Robert De Niro, and it's actually it offers connecting back to my movie. Frontal nudity of both Gerard Depardieu and Robert De Niro, right? So you,
Yeah.
you wouldn't think of that before. And so I like that. I like those great. epic movies. I loved Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean, though also the connection he had with the music, both in Lawrence of Arabia and
Oh yeah.
what's the movie called and set in Russia, Doctor
Dr.
Zhivago.
Zhivago, yeah. Sure.
And that's also where I think usually what you should do is obviously the music shouldn't take away focus from the
Mhm.
scene, and ideally it's like a camera position. You shouldn't be aware of it. And with cameras, it really annoys me if it's a showy camera and tells me, "Oh, look how I can move, what I can do." I think that should be kind of modest in the background. But with music, and I think I have to having the Midas Touch, it takes over for a moment or two. And I don't think there's a problem with that. Obviously, it can be annoying if you have a very dramatic scene and then you get the violins playing and it's overdone. Then that's annoying. But I did make the choice that you should become aware of my music in the movie. Obviously, if you have theme songs that come up with people,
Yeah.
um, then you got to be aware of that. Now, some purists with film music would tell you that's not good because it takes away from the focus of the story. But I think if it's not a realistic story, if it's an over the top kind of story, I think it's a nice element. But it's in a way, it's a bit like a fourth wall break because people
Yeah.
become aware of it. I don't know what you thought of that decision to make that music that sweeping
Well,
grand
I
and
don't, I don't have a problem at all. The more music,
great.
the better for me.
Okay.
No, I rarely have an issue with that. There are times where I realize that I've been listening to music and I don't remember it, and it's so invisible, but
Yeah.
you had an impact from it.
Hmm.
Especially nowadays as sound design and music merge. It can be rumbles and and fast strings and stuff like that.
That's exciting. I love
Yeah.
that. You know,
But
that's
I do. I
probably
mean, for me, my goal is I really want lyric writing in future films. I do as much as I can do stuff like that. It doesn't thrill me as much as like honestly like stuff you're doing. I'd rather come up with thematic tunes that come back and haunt you throughout the movie.
yeah.
And by the end of it, you're going, "What in the hell? Get that out of my."
yeah. That's what I was going for.
No, it was funny
Great.
because
So
I finished that after watching the movie. I was kind of like, wow. And then I realized I started singing that damn song. I'm going, Jesus, that thing really. And repetition does that. I mean, that's
yeah.
one classic. That's one reason it works.
yeah, it
Yeah.
does that.
Well,
So we had some choices like that. We also had we put in an original song, which is kind of like that was something we had this idea of. We got the I don't know if you remember the scene. The protagonist Felix is really at a low point, and he's got kind of like he almost got raped with the Midas touch by the guy whose boss was taking advantage of him while he's in the sofa in that scene.
uh,
So he's going home. He's really sad. So that's the only bit of music that we had that we actually put a song in there, and that was a decision to have like a love song and a beautiful song. But then it kind of goes the action it ridiculizes the moment because he's at home, he's looking in his fridge and he sees the shape
yeah,
of the fruit, and that reminds him of the woman. And so that was the only moment that we had a song in there, and
right.
which in itself the song is not, it's just a romantic love song, but if you put it together with the scene it becomes kind of like it satirizes it because it's so over the top. And then directly at the end of that song we get into the theme music of the news. And yeah, I was just wanting to point that out because it's the only song we featured.
Right, right, right. I probably we try to start wrapping this up. So film, we were talking about that already. What are you currently working on? Anything?
The
Where
stupid
can I get this film
distribution.
distributed?
yeah, that's it. You know what I was thinking about? I trying to do something more with the same characters. I was thinking of a prequel, having a television series, but how did the characters get to the point of what happened? Because I think I like the characters. I want to know more about the cult. We don't know so much about how did that come
Right,
about?
right.
What's the backstory? And so I'm trying to sell that and see if we can have that going. But other than that, it's just distributing day in day out. I do podcasts. This is my third podcast. I'm trying to make people know about that, and I obviously have to contact writers. No, it's just marketing and
Hmm.
trying to you know
Well,
make my movie.
we connected through Indie Rights, so
Yeah,
my
that's it.
film's
That's
on.
it.
And they're an excellent distribution
How
company. So
how are you connected to them? Is that the movie that you were referring to
yeah,
before?
yeah, the As the Earth Turns film. They took that on. So and I had some help on shopping it around a little bit. So initially, but because I really didn't know what I was getting into at all. So
Mm.
I for my film, it's going to be on Turner Classic Movies this year.
Oh,
And
great!
that
Congratulations.
was something I had arranged myself. So that was I did a lot of festivals and I was in LA a bunch in 2019. Thank God we did our festival run that year. And on one of those final trips, I did meet with somebody from that network, and so we're still waiting to get it programmed in. They're trying to find a place for it because it's such an odd situation.
With the pandemic and all,
Well,
right?
no, I
But
mean just the film is so weird. It's a silent sci-fi movie, and they're trying to figure out where TCM is trying to figure out where to put it in. And then
yeah.
I'm putting a DVD together of assets from his life and stuff, and working working on a documentary, finishing that up. So but
But that's
aside from
great.
scoring, yeah. So I've been very busy trying to deal with all that stuff. But it is just a landslide of stuff that you do to make movies. I mean, the movie once the movie's done, that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Then the
Yeah,
hard
yeah, it
work
really
happens. So
is.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. There's a film called The Assistant, I think, and it's about Stanley Kubrick's assistant who he hired, who is still working on Stanley Kubrick's films to this day. He's
Oh.
editing them, redoing them, sending them out. I mean, incredible. Yeah. So it never
Yeah.
ends.
No, definitely not. But it's nice if you have people to do that for you, but on an independent level, you have to do
Yeah.
all of that yourself. Right?
And I'm curious. I mean, did you had some heavy fundraising for that film to do that?
No, not so much. That was not. It didn't work out so much because it was fundraising. You also have to connect to people and do all of that. We didn't have the manpower to do that, but we found some people who independently invested in that movie. So that worked out fine because we had a budget. It was considering if you compare it to big movies, it's small budget, but we had close to $400,000. So that was a bit of
Well,
a
if you were in a
budget.
studio doing music, you were spending money in there for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, no, that's great. I mean, it's a lot of work, and you know, a lot of people on that thing for sure.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so are there any regular collaborators you're working with these days, or
Not so much. I just hired everybody, and then when it's done, they said, "Oh, thank God that's over." And I
right?
don't have people to go. Yeah, I haven't done enough. If I would actually recast a lot of people. And actually, from the crew, I was very happy with the crew. I would
Mhm.
like to work with them together, doing
Yeah, yeah.
making a second movie. But so far, I haven't had a chance to work continuously with the same people because I haven't done enough
Right.
big projects like that.
What's your goal in the next 6 months? Just working on getting this film out, or you have other?
Yeah, getting this film out and maybe being on to another project, getting hooked up with people who are interested in new projects that I want to do.
Right,
That'd
right,
be great. And actually, right now, through you mentioned Indie Ride Movies, our distributor, and they have this great homepage. And right now I'm connecting. And what you do is you connect and showcase a movie to a jury of your peers, and
right,
you see a lot of other movies, and
right.
you talk to them, and they talk to you about your movie, and you talk to them about their movies, and it's a really nice learning.
Yeah. Well,
Experience
there's
because obviously they're more open because they know it's difficult. They're not like just
it's a community.
glancing at it. It
Yeah,
is.
it's wild. I
It
had no idea. I mean, there's like 400 or 500 filmmakers that they're working with
is.
any given time. And it's nice to kind of get a sense of who's doing what and how they're doing. It's like,
Yeah, definitely. Very
we all
interesting.
get to see how everybody's doing. A little
Yeah,
odd, but what the hell? It gives you something to shoot for. You can see that there are movies that are actually making money on
ah,
Amazon. A
yeah.
few, not a lot, but
It's amazing, isn't it?
yeah,
But at least they're making money for Amazon. If you want to make
right.
money yourself, you got to have a lot of hours doing, because what do they pay you, 6 cents the hour of a
Yeah,
movie?
it's
It's some
ridiculous.
terrible,
Yeah, no,
ridiculous.
yeah,
You should form a union and demand more money off of Jeff Bezos.
yeah. That's not going to happen.
No.
But there's a lot of networks out there, and so and then indie rights is moving to different places. They understand where the dough is, so they're trying to. I mean, now the stuff's on Tubi and
Yeah,
and Google Play and YouTube movies and stuff like that.
Roku and IMDb movies too. There's a lot.
Yeah,
Actually, it's not a bad time at all to be a
yeah,
filmmaker, independent filmmaker. That's true. A
yeah.
lot of niches that you can fill.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, I think we've probably exhausted every piece of information there is.
Definitely. There's
I'm
nothing more to
looking.
talk about. Well, I had a ball. Thank you. It was
Thank you
great. Great
very much,
conversation.
Tilman, and I appreciate this very, very much. And I honestly, I'd hope to work with you on something in the future. Maybe I can help out in some way.
That'd be great. Yeah.
And I always offer any exchange on distribution ideas, and for any filmmakers out there, I have experienced quite a festival run with my film, and so I'm always happy to give information out on that, which is a whole.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can need that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, folks out there, and stay tuned. There was going to be many filmmakers to come. I have many already scheduled, so this has been an excellent response. There should be some interesting people coming up very, very soon. So thanks, mucho, and we will see you in the future.
Thanks for having me.